Hello, everyone. Deep in the mountains of Japan, there is a certain presence that has been feared since ancient times. An old woman dressed in tattered clothes, her white hair disheveled, who preys on travelers who have lost their way. This is the Yamamba. This creature appears in many folk tales and legends. But have you ever thought deeply about her true identity? Is she a simple imaginary monster? Or is she a transformation of a harsh reality buried in the darkness of history? Today, I would like to delve into the legend of the Yamamba, passed down in isolated mountain settlements, and the shockingly tragic historical background hidden behind it. Have you ever felt someone watching you or experienced an unexplainable chill in the deep forests or rugged mountains far from human habitation? If at that moment you found an old house and were invited in by a kind old woman, what would you do? The existence known as Yamamba has been talked about in mountainous areas throughout Japan since ancient times. Generally, she is known as a monster, with a terrifying face, who captures and consumes people. However, on the other hand, it is also said that the Yamamba has an aspect as a mountain deity who brings good fortune. This contradictory duality may indicate the depth of the Yamamba's existence. For example, the Yamamba who raised Kintaro in Mount Ashigara is depicted as an affectionate and strong figure. However, what we are focusing on today is not such a warm story, but rather the blood-stained legends of those who take a life under the cover of night. The Yamamba, appearing in many ghost stories, often follows a pattern of offering a traveler a place to stay and then starting to sharpen a kitchen knife once they have fallen asleep. Her purpose was to satisfy her hunger, which meant taking the traveler's life. Why did these women seek the flesh of their own kind? Deeply involved in this were the horrific food situations that ancient Japan faced, and the unique ethics created by isolated communities. Looking back at history, former mountain settlements were literally in a state of isolation, cut off from the outside world. Roads were not maintained, and in winter they were closed off by deep snow, completely stopping the supply of food. In such extreme conditions, what would happen if crop failures or famines due to bad weather overlapped? There is a theory that the path people were forced to choose to survive was a forbidden eating habit. That would be completely unacceptable to our modern sensibilities. Specifically, are you familiar with the term Kuchiberashi? It was a sad means of reducing the number of family members to distribute limited food to those who could survive. The targets were often young children or elderly parents, who were less likely to be a labor force. There are also points that the legend of Ubasutyama, or the mountain, where the elderly were abandoned, was not just a story, but actually part of a functioning system. An old woman abandoned in the mountains became feral in order to survive and eventually began to attack people from the village. The idea that this is one of the true identities of the Yamamba is very persuasive. Here is something I want to ask you all. If you were placed in an extreme situation, where you had to sacrifice someone's life to let your beloved family survive, would you have the confidence to maintain your correct ethics? It is terrifying even to imagine. But in former isolated settlements that may have existed as a realistic choice, there are also interesting commonalities. In the physical characteristics of the Yamamba, descriptions such as having a large mouth on top of the head, or being an extremely heavy eater. Could this be an embodiment of the latent fear of people who were constantly suffering from hunger, a sense of starvation that cannot be satisfied no matter how much one eats? It is the instinctive craving of a human being, trying to survive an extreme state. Also, many legends remain that the Yamamba dislikes metal, which is said to symbolize the friction between the indigenous people living in the mountains, or nomadic people, and the village people who settled and farmed. Furthermore, in certain settlements, records exist that while the Yamamba was enshrined as a kind of guardian deity, her true nature was a target to which people's lives were offered. Human sacrifice, the ritual of offering, someone's life to pray for the peace of the entire village. What if, while appearing to be the work of a monster, it was actually an organized action taken to maintain the community? What if the people who became victims became grudges and were passed down to later generations as the specter of the Yamamba? Thinking about it that way, doesn't the sound of the mountain wind, said to be the cry of the Yamamba, sound like something else? It cannot be ignored that treasures and wealth often appear in Yamamba stories. The ending, where the person who defeated the Yamamba brings back a large amount of money and goods from her house. This suggests the possibility that people who monopolized mineral resources, sleeping in mountainous areas or unique trade routes, spread rumors of the Yamamba to exclude outsiders, fabricating the existence of a terrifying monster to protect their own interests, or to justify acts of plunder. They framed the opponent as a monster called Yamamba. The aspect that human greed created the monster is also an undeniable fact. The existence of the Yamamba has changed its form over time. From medieval picture scrolls to ghost stories of the Edo period and modern urban legends, she is always by our side. The Yamamba in modern times is talked about, for example, as an unidentified old woman who suddenly appears on a mountain path, or a strange figure wandering around a campsite at night. Although the form changes, the awe we instinctively feel toward the mountains and the eeriness of not knowing what is being done in a closed-off place are common. Here, let me ask you once more. Is the Yamamba really an existence of the past or only within the imagination? Don't you think there are places even at this moment in deep mountain settlements, not on the map, where ancient rules continue to be kept? And there, the exchange of lives that we should have, forgotten, may still be taking place. As a climax, let me introduce an episode left in an old record. It is an event in a village that a young man wandered into while traveling. In that village, everyone treated him kindly, but at night, the old women of the village gathered in one place and were sharpening blades while singing a strange song. The young man felt terror and fled, but at that time he saw it, a pile of countless bones, under the floorboards that were clearly not from animals nor from humans. He desperately escaped back to the village and reported it to the officials, but it is said that he could never find that village again. What this story means: it is the possibility that the Yamamba was not an individual monster, but the madness shared by the entire settlement. For people who were isolated from society and built their own survival strategies, those who came from the outside may have looked like a blessing, rather than a mere intruder, taking a life to live. The concept of the Yamamba was necessary to deify or justify that act. A monster born of a sad survival instinct, the most terrifying and most human-like. That may be the true form of the existence known as Yamamba. Well, how did you feel about this story of the Yamamba and the isolated settlement? I think you noticed that there are many parts, linked to actual history, to just dismiss it as a scary story. In the silence of the mountains, the sound of someone sobbing, or the sound of sharpening a blade, may still be mixed in even now. If you have a chance to walk in the mountains next time, please be very careful not to stray from the path and be mindful of the presence behind you. On this channel, we will deeply delve into the unknown truths and historical backgrounds hidden behind such traditional Japanese monsters and urban legends. If you found this interesting, please subscribe to the channel and give us a high rating. Also, if there are stories of the Yamamba passed down in your area or mysterious experiences, please let us know in the comment section. Your experience might become the theme of the next video. Well then, see you in the next story.